Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. Before we ever got the Halloween 4 that we eventually got in 1988, there was a Halloween 4 script that was in the works for quite some time. They did try, before Halloween 4 even came out, they did try and bring Michael Myers back way earlier than they managed to do in 1988. And it all started way back in 1982, right after Season of the Witch. Now, the creators of Season of the Witch, even including John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, they still wanted to do Halloween films after that, but they wanted it to be in the same style of Season of the Witch. But that obviously didn't happen because Season of the Witch didn't fare too well with the audiences and critics at the time as well. So there was a time when John Carpenter was supposed to sign on to do another Halloween film just after Season of the Witch, but John Carpenter, being John Carpenter, didn't want anything to do with Halloween anymore. He felt like if he was going to be doing a Halloween movie, it would be for something completely different and nothing to do with Michael Myers. That's the only way he would stay involved, if it had nothing to do with Michael Myers. But the producers wanted John Carpenter, they wanted Michael Myers, but it just wasn't something that John Carpenter was interested in. Now, believe it or not, John Carpenter was actually threatened to be sued if he didn't get involved in a Halloween film, and that's mainly because the company that wanted to release Halloween films with Michael Myers, they wanted to release it with Michael Myers, but with John Carpenter attached to it. And he kept on saying no, he didn't want anything to do with that, but he still wanted to retain the rights of Michael Myers and or Halloween. But while this battle was going on back in the early 80s, we had this resurgence of the 80s slasher movies with A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and they were all making big bucks at the box office. And the producers at the time just thought, for every movie that comes out that doesn't have Michael Myers, they're losing a lot of money. And John Carpenter, again, didn't care about the money at the time. He didn't care. He just didn't want anything to do with it. So they wanted to try and sue him, but eventually they came to an agreement. Canon Films came on and said, right, I'll give you like a 3 or 4 picture deal. I think it was a 3 picture deal with John Carpenter, as long as he attaches himself to another Halloween film that has Michael Myers in it. He decided, you know what, okay, let's do it. So at this moment in time, John Carpenter was going to be involved in a Michael Myers film after Season of the Witch. Sounds crazy today because nobody really knows about that, but that was the case for a small period of time. Now, his involvement wasn't what you think it would be. He really minusculed his involvement to the point where his only involvement in Halloween 4 would be just finding the script writer for this latest movie, and that's exactly what he done. He found someone that he worked with before on previous movies, someone called Dennis Etchison, and this is what's known as the Etchison draft or the Etchison script, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. Now, just looking at the script itself and judging by the script, I don't know if John Carpenter was being serious here, but he obviously read the script and he said he loved the script. But I don't know if he was just saying F you to the company or he actually really did like the script, because when I looked at the script, there are some things that are really good in it, but there are some things that are woeful, even worse than Curse of Michael Myers, the way they go with those movies, or Halloween 5. When I was reading it, I was like, what on earth am I reading? Now, I did read some things that would probably be some of the best things that you would ever see, which we'll talk about, and some of the worst things. But when I was reading it, I was looking at it thinking there's maybe 4 or 5 things in this script that David Gordon Green actually used in his Halloween trilogy, whether it be things that happened in 2018, Kills or Ends. It seems like David Gordon Green and his crew read the Etchison script and took things from it that might have been good or bad, but they took things from it and put it into their trilogy, which is what I'll talk about as well. But I'll go through some of the points that I thought were very interesting, whether they're good or bad, things that I thought were really interesting with this Etchison script. A theme of this one would be the banning of Halloween holiday in the town of Haddonfield. Now, yes, it's going to be set in Haddonfield, that's all good, but the town are scared of what happened back in 1978, so there is no Halloween anymore in this little town. Now, they do celebrate out with Halloween. There's a scene with a pumpkin patch where Michael Myers kills someone in the script, but that's on the outskirts of Haddonfield, so you will see, or you would have seen, some Halloween themed areas around Haddonfield, but just not in Haddonfield. Everyone's scared of Michael Myers. Nobody wants to celebrate it. Now, the parents in this movie, they're the ones that are scared because obviously they were kind of younger when Michael Myers was around back in 1978. So we can fast forward to 10 years. We do have Tommy and Lindsay in there, and they're late teenagers now, so they're the ones that are going out, probably trying to get killed, etc. All their teenage friends are going to get killed by Michael Myers. So they're the ones that are celebrating Halloween on the down low. Some of them are celebrating it quietly. Some of them do believe that if you do celebrate it, Michael Myers will come back and haunt you, etc. So there's a bit of a balance there. Some of them like it, some of them don't. A big absence in this script is Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis. There is no Dr. Loomis in this Halloween 4. This is where it gets strange. Dr. Loomis did die at the end of Halloween 2 in this script, but so did Michael Myers. So you might be thinking, well, who is playing Michael Myers in this one? Is it actually Michael Myers? Well, in a way, yes, and in a way, no. Now, this is where the script gets a little bit like A Nightmare on Elm Street. And now this part of the script was written after A Nightmare on Elm Street, so this could have been taken from A Nightmare or influenced by A Nightmare on Elm Street, and that the town itself, like I said, are scared of Michael Myers, but their fear of Michael Myers is what brings Michael Myers out in spirit. So he is going about killing people, but only in spirit because of the fear that the town has for Michael Myers. So they try and forget what happened in 1978, which is why they forbid the kids and the teenagers from talking about him. The best part of this script was for the finale of the movie. It takes place at the Lost River Drive-In, which is a reference to Halloween 2, I believe. It takes place here, and this is where there is a massacre. Michael Myers kills hundreds of people at this drive-in. Funnily enough, they're watching a Friday the 13th movie that features Jason Voorhees in it, and there's a scene that would have been quite cool where you see Jason Voorhees blurred out on the background killing people the exact same way that Michael Myers is killing people in the drive-in. So the two of them are killing people on screen at the same time. That sounds pretty fantastic. Now, Michael Myers goes from car to car as he's killing people. So they did say that this would have been the highest body count ever for a slasher movie, not just for Halloween, the Halloween franchise, but for any slasher movie. So that would have been interesting, of course. It kind of reminds me of David Gordon Green's Halloween from 2018, where Michael Myers goes from door to door. Only in this instance, it's a bigger scale and sounds like it's going to be a more interesting scale because he's going from car to car killing people. Now, that's the most interesting aspect of it. Now, the worst part of it is what's coming up next. As he's killing these people, the police are obviously called to the scene, and the police start shooting Michael Myers. Now, at this point, Michael Myers is taking the shots from the police officers, but with every shot he takes, he grows bigger. He actually gets physically bigger until he gets to 12 feet tall. So we've got a 12-foot Michael Myers killing police officers and people at this drive-in. It sounds absolutely nuts, but that's way beyond the realms of believability. And that's when it takes me back to John Carpenter reading this script. Obviously, John Carpenter doesn't want the same thing over and over again, which I understand, but he has to accept that, yes, we're going to have a Michael Myers movie, but at least make it believable on the same level as he did from 1978. But John Carpenter, being John Carpenter, he just wanted something completely different. So when he read that script from Etchison, he's probably like, brilliant, love it, absolutely love it. Now, I did mention that there's a lot of similarities with David Gordon Green's trilogy as there was with this script. I did mention Michael going from house to house, and this one, he goes from car to car. So that's a very similar vibe from what I was reading anyway. We've got Tommy and Lindsay that return. Obviously, that was probably going to happen at some point back in the early 80s because they were still fresh-faced at the time. But he did bring them back eventually in his own trilogy in 2018, Kills and Ends. Brackett was going to be returning as well, which again would have been quite some distance of time because it's been 10 years. His story kind of ended with Annie, but they were going to bring him back as well. Another interesting aspect was Lonnie. Lonnie Elam was going to come back as well with his friends, the other two boys. So not only would we have had Lonnie, like we did in the trilogy that we got recently, then his friends would have been back as well. I thought his friends would have made an appearance, or at least by name, in Kills or Ends. That didn't happen, but with Lonnie coming back in this script, there's just something about it that just feels so much like David Gordon Green's trilogy. Here's a really interesting part about the similarities is we've got reporters in this script, similar to the reporters from Halloween from 2018. these reporters in the Halloween 4 script are looking for Laurie Strode. They can't find her anywhere. She's not in this movie. They're looking for her and they can't find her. So the next place that they go is the sanitarium where Michael Myers used to be, similar to Halloween from 2018. And they talk to one of the doctors there, not Dr. Sartain, but another doctor. And they just ask about Michael Myers, which is, again, it just sounds very interesting. Now, one thing that's even more interesting is when they speak to this doctor, the doctor lets them hear audio tapes, conversations between Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers. Now, where have you heard that before? So as interesting as all this sounds, as unbelievable as all this sounds, this was going to be Halloween 4. They had the script written, they made some tweaks to it, and they were ready to shoot. But why wasn't it made? Well, luckily, Urban Yablons and Mustafa Akkad were still part of Halloween at the time. There was 4 of them. There was Urban Yablons, Mustafa Akkad, Deborah Hill and John Carpenter. Those were the 4 people that had the rights to this Halloween franchise. Now, they said, Urban Yablons and Mustafa Akkad says, we can't make this film. We want to have a grounded in reality Michael Myers. The first director that was coming on to direct this movie was actually Joe Dante, who's a great director. He was coming on to direct this film and the script was ready. They were ready to shoot, but that's when Urban Yablons and Mustafa Akkad came in and said, listen, we can't do this. And because of that, John Carpenter took a hissy fit and he said, do you know what? Me and Deborah, we're out. We're going to sell our shares for whatever we own and we just want out. And he said, now that I'm out, don't put my name across anything. I know that you might want to, but I just don't want to be associated with this anymore. I'm out. At Urban Yablons, Mustafa Akkad said, do you know what? That's fine. Now that you two are gone, we can take complete control and we can get a movie that we really wanted. But that wasn't the end of it. Urban Yablons and Mustafa Akkad also had problems with each other, some creative differences as well, until the point where Urban Yablons done the same as John Carpenter. He left as well, and that just left Mustafa Akkad in sole control. Now, that's good if you're really invested in a character. It could be bad, though, if you've got ideas that maybe nobody else shares with you. Luckily, Mustafa Akkad, for quite a lot of the time in some of the sequels, it's been okay. So Mustafa Akkad said, we're not going to be doing this Halloween 4 script because I don't want a 12-foot Michael Myers that's only there in spirit. Fortunately for John Carpenter as well, when he wanted out and he got himself out of it, he also got himself out of that contract that he made with Cannon Films where he was going to be involved in a Halloween movie and he was going to make 3 movies with them as well. He got out and he ended up doing his own thing, making his own movies with a different company. I just think that out of all the scripts that I've read for unmade Halloween films, this one seems like one of the most interesting ones because there are some things, like I said, that sound really good. Like that Drive-In Massacre sounds absolutely fantastic. And I hope that maybe somebody reads that script and uses something like that, something similar to that for a future Halloween film, because that does sound pretty fantastic. Obviously, I don't want to see a 12-foot Michael Myers. I don't want to see a Michael Myers that's actually dead, but just there in spirit. It just sounds like something like Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, or just, it sounds too supernatural. I do agree. Unfortunately, I agree with Mustafa Akkad and Urban Yablons for this one. I'm glad that they stood their ground and John Carpenter and Deborah Hill stepped away from it because obviously we know Michael Myers as the way we do now because of all the sequels that we had. And I kind of thank them for that because we do love Michael Myers more than what we would have if John Carpenter and Deborah Hill stayed in charge of all the creative ideas. Now, if they did have the creative control and they did make movies like Season of the Witch moving forward, we would be none the wiser, and maybe they would have done really good Halloween films that would have stood the test of time. We just don't know. But because I'm a massive fan of Halloween, but I'm also a fan of Michael Myers, I'm kind of glad that they scrapped the Halloween 4 script that they had and just went with the one that we got, because the Halloween 4 that we got, to me, is one of the best sequels in the franchise. So what are your thoughts on that crazy script, guys? Is there anything in it that you think, wow, that sounds pretty good, or wow, that sounds really bad? Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think and we can have a discussion on it. And as always, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
I'll be right back.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the back!